focusing on a skeptic. So thermal imaging. Why would I want thermal imaging in a ghost hunt?
So you feel the spirit of the
How so?
house.
In what way? This is a thermal. Obviously, we can see temperatures in here, right? Are ghosts hot? They're cold. We're looking for cold spots, literal cold spots. So, will we actually capture anything with this guy? Fingers crossed we will. But you should be able to see me. I'm the orange, red, and yellow guy in there. Sorry, Doug, but I'm the hottest guy in the video right now. But with that, we're looking for the blue and black spots to either take shape or move on their own. Now, just last week, we actually caught a full body apparition, completely cold, walking across a parking lot. So I get about 4 or 5 really strong pieces of evidence from this guy per year. So again, we won't capture unless we are recording. So that's kind of how. And the funny thing is it went to an 8-year-old little girl, and she didn't even know she caught it. I caught it the next day. So pretty cool stuff. But anyway, a couple things about this video. You will get the full video back. However, I'm going to give Doug a few starts and stops on this because as great as the hardware is, this is a FLIR Pro 1. What does that mean to you? Firemen use this to save people. Like, this is the real deal. Like, this isn't some phone app. But you're going to have a blue dot bouncing around the screen. That's going to give you the coldest point in the frame at that particular moment. Okay. Back to why the hardware is so great, but the software sucks. That's the reason why we start and stop from time to time. And I splice it all together so you have one video to watch, and it will be in sequential order. But that blue dot will kind of be bouncing around the screen. That just kind of helps direct your eye on where we need to be looking. You're also going to have a cheat sheet that will not be on the full video. It's kind of that little bar gives you the highest and lowest temperature that's in the frame at that moment. Okay. So again, I have it set up to where there's a center crosshairs as well. So even if the blue dot is not on something, but you see something blue and cold forming, you can move the camera to put those center crosshairs on that to see what the temperature is.
All right, and see your little blue, the blue dot floating around over your shoulder.
Yep, you got it.
All right.
Because behind me there's a vehicle, which means the windows are going to be way colder than my skin.
Yeah.
So, with cameras, a couple of things. You're going to keep that horizontal all night. Even when I tell you to restart it, I want you to start it with the, in the same position. So that means the camera's on your left. That's the wire side.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's going to be upside down, and we're going to be watching the video crazily. And then people do not like to be filmed, nor do they like their cars to be filmed. Again, we're going to be in some spaces tonight where there's going to be some parked cars. So I will say act casual, and then you're just casually holding a cell phone. You're just going to simply drop it instead of looking like a YouTuber like you are now.
Perfect.
So,
all right.
So each one of our devices does something different?
Yes.
They're all blue.
Yeah.
So we are going to be using several different types of spirit boxes, though, because this is our best way to try to communicate with the dead. So spirit boxes are basically, this one is going to sweep through the FM radio stations at a fast rate. On your TV shows and your YouTube videos of paranormal investigators, like, it's normally just white noise, and then they kind of tell you what they think they heard in the middle of it. This one I have slowed down on purpose because none of you are trained to be listening to white noise for 2 hours and all the history I'm going to give you, which means somebody's going to fall asleep. So there's another method that you can use. You can allow the radio chatter to come through. It's a 50-50 shot that whatever comes through to that radio chatter, that it could be tied to the location, the person, or something going on with one of us. When I say radio chatter, I mean song lyrics, DJs, commercials. If you hear anything pop through this guy, it's a possibility that it could be where we are. At least twice a week he does that to me. I think he does it because I'm standing over here. But anyway, this particular spirit box, I have 2 of these that we're going to be using. Now this one, I want basically the person to be using it to have earbuds in. So if somebody's uncomfortable with earbuds, I do not want them back, by the way. I buy them in bulk. But if somebody's not comfortable wearing an earpiece in to be able to listen to it, please let me know now, so that way I don't assign it to that person. Everybody's good with earbuds? All right, perfect, because I like to want to put one of these in every group. So the cool thing is that this one is going to record the entire session for us. What does that mean for you? You're going to get the entire recording back, and I'm going to spot check it tomorrow morning and give you about 15 to 20 extra markers on top of things I heard, on top of whatever the person in real time heard. So again, it'll give you a slew of different terms. There might be terms that I give you that might not be relevant. Again, it's helping to train your ear on how to listen to this for everybody else. So, yeah, lots of homework. It's a full work day. We're going to see how you do with this one. We're going to see. So, I'm going going to have you untie the twisties to where you can get comfortable with. The volume button is right here. It's a wheel. So again, you're listening for radio track. That's the song lyrics and DJs. Whatever word you hear that come through, because it's going to come through. You can see it's going through all the different radio stations. It's going to come through that little tiny station. Word, phrases, full sentence, music, song lyrics. Sometimes the song lyrics will make sense to where we are. It just depends. So there's a little twist on it. Again, this is a pretty hard job. Okay. Kennedy, you're going to get the other one. Because we got to get you to open up. You haven't said a word since we got here other than your own name. We got to get you talking too.
She's an expert with earbuds.
I figured. If I have kids, especially teenagers in my group, I always give them one of these because they are the experts. And again, I don't want the earbuds back. Earwax is gross. You guys keep them. There you go. All right, so you have a twist tie as well. It's right here. Your volume button is right here. Now yours is not recording, so I'm gonna have to rely on you or whatever you hear in real time so I can write it down so I can give it to you guys tomorrow morning.
All right. And that's an FM scanner that's essentially
Recording the sweep. That's it.
just going through the sweep. All right.
All right. So this spirit box works a lot differently.
What's the volume?
Yep, that's just the volume.
So should I keep it up or what should I keep it up?
Whatever. Normally people only put one earbud in.
Oh.
Yep. So that way you can either hear me, and you play with the volume all you want. You're not going to mess up the recording.
Can you take a picture with your phone as you're walking to see if there's any words?
You can. This is your tour, honey. You can do whatever you want. You want to take pictures? Have at it.
I can't see.
Just make sure you put them in your review. Because TripAdvisor only allows me to put in so many. I gotta rely on you guys to put them in there. Alright, so this next spirit box works a lot differently. This one's gonna give us a set of words from time to time in the center of the screen. Right now we have the word money, right? It's gonna save all of those terms to a list. That list actually has timestamps on it. This is a phone app. This is meant to be a game and a hoax. 80% of what comes out of here doesn't mean anything. It's the other 20% that's going to be tied to the person, the location, or one of us. Same thing as the other ones. I'm going to clear out the last tour I did. They had over 80 terms, which is about average of what I've been seeing. So again, they had about 5 to 12 terms that actually meant something out of that. So I don't want to see every word that pops up. I will come to you when I want to see the list. Basically, all you have to do is keep an eye on it. Nice and easy one for you.
So you're saying that the words that come up are not necessarily applicable. It's the other words, right? Is that what you're saying?
So
80% that come up,
yeah,
not so much?
Correct. So you're going to hear me say that a lot tonight, that's part of the 80%. Probably doesn't mean anything.
Right, okay.
So you'll probably, again, it's most of it.
Okay.
Oh no, we're putting you to work.
Oh, yeah. You know, I did all the work. I picked you as the tour guide.
Which is exactly why you're getting the brand new device.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
So this one is another type of spirit box, but it works a lot differently. So what this one's going to do, Miss Paula, is it's going to sweep through the FM and radio stations, FM and AM together at the same time. And it's going to take, it is, but this one's taking out all of the static. So it's not going to make a whole lot of noise. It's just going to give us little blurbs from time to time, like what it just did. The hope is that something's going to creep through that is tangible to where we are. Now, so far, this thing's been about 75% accurate. So again, I've only had it for about 2 weeks. So let's not get too excited about that yet. But I am going to show you where the mute button is, because obviously when I'm talking history to you guys, I want you to go ahead and mute it, which there's only one button right here on the side. You don't need to touch anything else.
Okay.
That's it. And right now it's on mute, so we want to kind of keep it there until I get Tara her device. She gets to carry the bag.
I always carry the bag. It's okay.
You're my multifunction. So, with your device, she's going to be measuring 3 different types of things. First thing is going to be electromagnetic fields. So that's anything electrical. So cell phones, wirings, buildings, anything like that. The gist here behind this in a paranormal sense is that the spirit world can actually manipulate electromagnetic fields. So we're going to be measuring that with the top number. Anything above 2.5, I want to know what's going on with that. So that way I can kind of see what's going on there. I'm also putting this device with this group because the bottom number actually measures ambient temperature with the yellow probe. So if Doug finds something on his camera, you and I can prove it or debunk it pretty quickly based on what's going on inside the camera. The last thing that it has is it will detect motion. So if anything gets close to that antenna that I just pulled out, it will go off. The closer it gets, the higher pitch we're going to get. So again, we don't use that all the time because it's very distracting for me. So I'll kind of give you the cues for that and show you more about that at our first location. For now, just focus on your red screen.
2.5.
2.5 and higher.
All right.
All right, guys, go have fun. Let me know what happens.
All right.
I feel like when you have like 10 or 20 people
I only go to 10.
and everybody has something.
So I have lasers. I have a full spectrum camera that uses
All info.
Yeah.
More info.
more info. But again, when I have 10 people, it's more explaining. So it can take a little bit longer, which they usually go over their time, which I don't usually pay attention to time, because if we're getting evidence in a location, we're staying just to make sure like we're going to wrap it up. If there's not a whole lot going on in this particular space, I move it on pretty quickly. So you guys are going to find that out pretty fast.
Can you tell Kennedy again, what is she supposed to be listening for?
So are you hearing like the static and the different radio channels coming through? Are you hearing any words come through, like song lyrics or DJs talking or a commercial? For example, if a car commercial comes on and it says, "Buy it now," I want to know that it said, "Buy it now." Does that make sense? Did you see the movie Transformers? No. Okay. Can you hear music and stuff coming through it right now? Do you have the volume turned up?
I can hear this. You gotta turn it on.
Yeah. I'm gonna make sure. Is it sweeping? Yep, it's moving. So you should be hearing little tiny things come through, and it's not gonna be all night long. There's only gonna be certain words and phrases that will pop up. Trust me, you'll know when you hear something.
If you hear words, you have to tell them.
Yep.
Okay?
All right.
All right.
Perfect.
So let's talk about why we started here. And again, we're going to talk more about all of your devices at the next stop, but I do like to do a quick ghost story before we move on. So Big John's behind me. This place was owned by Big John Kennedy. He was a football player for the 1947 New York Giants. Whenever I tell you the history of a location, I will always slow down on keywords. I'm from the north, and I talk very, very fast, which is another reason why I record everything for you. But you'll also notice that I slow down on keywords. Here, it's 1947, New York, and Giants. And obviously John and anything relatable to a bar. But let me tell you what happened.
Did you say
Giants. See? I talk too fast. It's Giants.
Giants? Okay.
I do talk fast. So he used to sit in the back of this bar, and he would tell the bartender if the cadets coming over from the Citadel, if they were old enough to drink or not. And one night, two guys come in, they're not old enough to drink. So he has the bartender throw them out. They come back the next night, and they try to steal the cash register from the front of the bar. John sees what's going on. He sets down his beer, and he goes over, and he just starts beating these guys up, just pounding them right into the floor. A couple of gunshots go off. John gets hit in the neck, and the bullet ends up landing in the wall behind him. John gets up, after being shot, by the way, goes back to the bar and tells the bartender to get him another beer, get the two guys on the floor, an ambulance. Mind you, John's the only one that got shot. So, here's what's haunting the place. The bullet hole is allegedly still here. Even if it's been filled in with the new renovation of Big John's that we now see, Big John's blood is still here. People that sit in the front of this bar tend to get a little queasy, nauseous, headache. This is kind of a heated warning. I can't tell you how many guests of mine, because they all get the same text that you guys got this morning. They're like, "Oh, we'll just eat dinner at Big John's and go to the tour."
That's
Yeah.
That's where we went.
Where did you sit?
In the front.
No, we
In
sat
the
right
front.
there.
The front
Yeah,
table.
the
In
front.
the window.
Did anybody not finish their meal because they weren't feeling well?
No.
No.
But
We left a little bit over, but...
I ate everything.
I wolfed it down.
Although, she didn't feel well during lunch today, and she was passing out, but that was hours before.
No,
Yes.
he didn't know we were eating
I
dinner,
am
John.
Hey, I'm just saying.
So,
She felt really sick this afternoon.
eating at the same place?
No.
No, at
Oh.
a different place.
Different place.
This afternoon.
Where was that?
But we were scheduled to
We
eat
were- No, but I felt... Oh, no, we
just
were walking up King
Susan,
Street.
stop getting
Commercial.
yourself.
I just think it's related. Come on.
We'll see. Get your walk.
Yeah.
You have a spirit box. You're super important because you got
I
the
know.
time
Okay,
stamps.
go ahead.
So anyway, heated warning. you're going to be dealing with paranormal activity tonight, fingers crossed, because that's why you're all here. I don't know how it's going to affect anybody. If anybody starts to feel any of those symptoms during our time together, please let me know immediately so we can move the whole group and get that person to safety. I won't say that I haven't had to call paramedics in the past on a nice cool night like this. So we will talk more about that as we move along. Now that
Do you always go to the same spots?
it depends. Sometimes what you guys are hearing will direct us into a whole new location that I haven't been to in a while, because I still know most of the stories down here. Most of them are false, myths, legends, so forth. But sometimes it'll take us a little bit off track. I take you to the spaces that I get the most activity out of. So again, if something steers us off track because 4 or 5 things are popping up, where I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to go over here because this story is coming through really, really strong tonight. And then we'll find out the reason why. This weird lighting is hitting the 3 of you right now. I can't figure out where it's coming from. It's just weird because I stand here every night and it doesn't normally happen.
Uh-oh. Should I turn this on?
Not yet. So, let's get our minds off our own health because we have a mom and we have a kid here and we don't want to scare anybody too badly about getting sick on the tour. So, big earthquake here in 1886. If you didn't already know that from another tour, now you do. This building behind me is where allegedly the first death from that earthquake occurred. The white mantle you see in the middle of the building also wraps around the front side on the East Bay side. They say a piece of that broke off from the earthquake, struck somebody in the back of the head, and killed them. And they say you can see his ghost in the middle of East Bay Street. I say apparently and allegedly a lot with that story because I don't have any proof. It's just a great segue so that Tara's not thinking about getting sick on the tour. Okay, I usually point out the moms with that one because that's usually like, what the hell did I sign up for? Whenever I tell people that they could possibly be influenced. Are you guys ready to go ghost hunting?
Okay.
Yes,
I was like, yeah, you're done. You're like, come on, man, he's
Okay,
ready.
so did I turn this on?
Not yet.
All right.
What's his name?
I don't remember. Tara will remember. What's his name?
Do you hear stuff, Kennedy?
Nick.
Nick, it's Nick. Kennedy heard screams.
Over there.
So I need to write that down. See, you did hear something. So again, you guys will see me whip out the little notebook from time to time.
I hear stuff. I hear some more.
Tara, do you have any reading on you yet?
No.
Just keep me posted.
Oh, 2.7. Ooh. But
Yeah, do I get
it
over
just
you?
flashed and now it's back down to 0.
All right.
12.3.
That's
What
hard.
does that mean again?
Okay.
To take out my camera, they create orbs.
So this is where I get to fully explain everything that's got to going on. See why I bring you guys here, like the next stop? So basically, to kind of give you guys a gist of what Tara's measuring. So there's EMFs all over your house with electrical items. So behind your television is going to be about 40 to 60 milligauss. She's measuring in milligauss. That's her unit of measure. Your microwave running on high is about 150 to 170, depending on how big the microwave is. So her getting a 12 point something where there's no wiring whatsoever, like, I know that that doesn't sound like a whole lot considering like your television spits off about 40 milligauss, but 12 where there's no wires, where there's nothing to be able to influence it, and then it just went away. We obviously have something going on here already. So let's get into these devices because we need to give you guys a further explanation of what the heck's going on here. So this is the big red barn lot. This is when I have my groups and I bring them over here so I can train them a little bit further. We don't spend a lot of time here because we're going to be talking about ponies for just a few moments. The history here is really simple. First off, boy, you should know this is where we keep the horses for your carriage rides.
Okay.
So the horses can't hear us, which is exactly why I didn't have you turn your spirit box on yet, Miss Paula, because they can hear it. They don't like the white noise. So with that said, the history here is really simple. This is the same red barn where we had horses that deliver milk and eggs to the residents of Charleston. That's it. That's all they got. So talking 1860s to 1920s. This is a perfect explanation on how to use your devices even further. First off, let's talk about spirit boxes, because we have how many in play tonight? We have 4 total. Okay, I have 6 grand total, so sometimes I have to stop and count. So we have 4 spirit boxes in play. Everybody wants to ask the first question that pops in their head, which is somebody here? Right? Because that's what everybody wants to do. If somebody says no, Kennedy, that means somebody's here. Okay? So we're not going to be asking yes and no questions all night long. You guys wanted paranormal proof? You're not going to get it out of a yes or a no. You're going to get it out of specific details. In a space like this, where you guys get to actually practice while we're walking through, I would say ask questions you know the answers to, like what color is the big red barn, right? So that way you're listening and looking for the color red. I say looking, I'm getting names mixed up here.
PAULA, Andrea.
Okay, so Susan, let's say because she's looking at a list, so the word red might not be available to the other 3 spirit boxes that are using radio stations to be able to convey messages back to us. However, if fire truck, blood, heart, all 3 of those things come up, those are specifically red. So that to me would be an acceptable answer because they're grabbing what they can out of the radio, so to be able to convey that message back to us. However, most of the night, I'm going to require that 2 pieces of evidence, I don't care which devices, are giving me 2 different clues to be able to piece together. For example, Susan's word list gives us the word art, and Kennedy hears the number 40. They don't mean anything by themselves, but you put them together, and you have Art Faircloth that was on Barrett John's team, was jersey number 40. You see where I have to piece all this stuff together? A lot of the stories tonight are going to have multiple people with the same
Join
name.
me to talk about.
See? Now you're getting stuff. There are going to be a lot of Charleses,
Shake it off.
Elizas.
You gotta tell him. I heard shake it off, like in music.
And I can't find any relation to the word shake. So, because it off doesn't mean really anything with the time span that we're talking about. So I'll look at the word shake and like, what does that mean? So, like, you'll find that out as we're moving along.
I have the word giant on here.
Because we were just talking about big jump.
Right?
So, again, I'm not surprised. Like, this is, I hate to not be so excited, but this is like,
It's
this is
exciting for
common.
us.
Yes, this is very, very common that we get these type of terms here. So, where was I? I kind of lost track of where I was. Oh, but anyway, multiple people with the same names. Lots of Charleses and Georges and Elizas. We need to know who we're talking to. That's why I normally say, you gave me a great start, but let's wait for a secondary clue. Now, giant, that's pretty obvious. We were just talking about the New York
You got
Giants.
the word giant?
Yeah.
Yes, and all along that, was like competitor and other things, money. But now
Money
it
was
says
the
giant.
first term.
I heard blood.
I'm going to have to write that down as we're going. So, I think the Spirit Box teams know exactly what they're doing now, other than you haven't been able
Is
to
it there is actually a profanity on here now. S-H-I-T.
Oh,
The word
Really? Well, what's inside the big red barn is usually the next question that I ask.
There you go.
Let's talk about your camera, because you're the last one. You're going to try to do 2 things for me. We've already talked about people's cars and, but what I didn't tell you is you want to try to keep a person in view. The reason why is because we're going to be the warmest thing out here. I know this is a nice, cool night for us, but we're still going to be 97 to 99 degrees on our skin temp. If anybody's higher than that, let me know. I'll boot them off the tour to go feel better.
That's right.
So you want to try to keep somebody in view because that gives us an array of color on the screen, and it makes it a lot easier to try to find that cold spot moving around.
Okay.
The other thing you're going to try to do is keep the sky out. Now, sometimes that might be impossible. Keeping the sky out is because there's no surface to the sky. The blue dot will default to the blue sky, trying to find a surface to measure, and it is the coldest area in the frame at that moment.
Okay.
So again, it'll automatically go up to the sky. So people in, sky out, if possible.
Got it.
So I think everybody's got a great gist. Are you guys done talking about football players and ponies?
Very good. Yes.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm so mute.
Yeah, let's unmute you, and we're going to walk through the rest of this alley and keep listening. And you heard blood, and you heard shake it off. Got it.
And fever.
Oh, you got fever, too? Weren't we just mentioning a fever? If somebody...
I think so. You told me about the if somebody has a temperature above.
I heard terrified.
Did you hear it or feel it?
No, I heard it. I hear more now than I did before.
Yeah.
Right? Solicitous acts.
Not really.
Alright, everybody. Follow me back as far as you can, because that's the only entrance and exit for vehicles to come in and out of. And again, I don't like to create ghosts. We're only searching for them, right? Okay, again, you're going to probably have a lot of readings. Just hang on to them until I can get through the history here, so if you can try to keep them memorized.
Okay.
All right, so we are going to be working with vehicles in here. So again, this is one of those act casual kind of places. Welcome to another beautiful space of, Charleston, right? It's another parking lot. So this place used to be something. This used to be the Eliza and Charles Pinckney Mansion site. So their mansion actually sat in the front of this lot. Eliza's garden was lined up with Five Church Restaurant over there and came all the way across, and we are standing in the servant and slave quarters for the home. So who the heck were these people? First off, you 4 Spirit Box teams, I'm not going to be giving you questions like what color is George Washington's white horse. You will get the answers from your Spirit Boxes. I do withhold information purposely so you have a genuine experience. So, Kennedy, it's all on you, no pressure. She's like, I'm not even paying attention to this history stuff. So, who the heck were Charles and Eliza? They had a son named Charles, they had a nephew named Charles. That's 3 different Charleses in case you lost count. The son and the nephew were signers of the Constitution for South Carolina. Pretty big deal to us, but you guys are all on vacation and nobody wants to talk about politics, including me. So, let's talk about Eliza. Still Women's History Month, yes? So, Eliza married Charles at a young age according to today's standards, not the colonial times that she came from. So you can ask her how old she was when she got married once we separate, but it's not going to be a low number like 12 or 14. Again, today's standards. The reason I bring this up is because Charles was over double her age when they married. So kind of keep that in mind when you're getting those numbers. But she married Charles because her father over in England thought he was dying, and he wanted to see all of his children one last time before he died. Eliza didn't believe he was dying, not to mention that's a long trek during colonial times to go back to see her father, to possibly not make it there in time. So, she married Charles and put her foot down. This is 1744. There's no such thing as marrying for a green card or citizenship because we're not even a country yet. So, she married Charles out of love, and even after Charles died, yes, she remained a widow, because everybody likes to ask me that question. So, remember, he died much earlier because he's double her age. But anyway, Dad gets better. Eliza was correct. Instead, Dad starts sending apologetic gifts to this space where we're standing now. One of those gifts happened to be the plant indigo. You guys have been in town for a few hours that I know of. You've seen the word indigo, I'm sure. Indigo is a plant that makes blue dye that makes her blue jeans blue. Most of you are wearing it tonight. That's how we use it today. Now, indigo was already here in Charleston from our Gullah slaves, but she didn't know how to keep it going. She was a botanist, but she had to learn from them on how to keep it going in our cold temperatures. She's seen the value of it. Once she got it right, she moved it to a plantation in Mount Pleasant.
Am I supposed to be listening to this? Somebody just said no.
Exactly. But
Somebody said no.
okay.
You said
You
that.
heard?
Yes, no.
She's got a good ear because I missed it. So, she moves it to Mount Pleasant, calls her dad up and says, rice plantations are going downhill. We can make a killing with this indigo. So, now we have an international businesswoman during colonial times, which is absolutely unheard of. That's the business of Eliza. Let's get into the weird stuff because that's why you guys are all here. So, Eliza is the second wife named Eliza from Charles, back to back. One Eliza dies, he marries this one 6 months later. So, both Elizas ironically have a maiden name that starts with the letter L. If you want to know which Eliza we're dealing with, you can ask her maiden name. The mansion's not here anymore, obviously. You can ask what happened to it and what year did that tragedy happen. Yes, I just gave you a clue that it is a tragedy. As far as Eliza's children, I'm going to ask you all to tread lightly, please. Here's what happens. You can ask how many children she had and what their names are, and that's it. The reason being is because there's a tragedy among those kids, and if you poke the bear too much, all activity stops, including any EMF that Tara might be having that she's missing out on, which is perfectly fine. So, Eliza's death is where she's really open. Ask her how old she was when she died. What did she die from?
Supposed to ask?
You folks with the spirit boxes.
Oh, when we by ourselves?
Yep. So once we separate and kind of move around. But as far as her death, how old she was, where she buried, what did she die from, and what U.S. president was a pallbearer at her funeral. But these are all specific non-yes and no questions, I'm sure you noticed. So I think I gave you guys enough to ponder on. And what's funny is the 3 of you all have different types of spirit boxes. So that's kind of funny. I didn't realize I did that until just now. I am going to take a quick gander at your word list before we kind of separate. We are going to spend about 10 minutes in this space. depending on how much activity is going to occur. You guys already seen like the amount that can occur with such a small story like Big John and the Giants, right? We already have a 12.3 that came up on, and I still have to show Tara how to use that REM pod, the motion sensor. But yes, you're going to be listening. The only thing I ask is you do not go in between vehicles or do not lean on vehicles. Most of these cars belong to the people that work through downtown, and we just try to stay our best to stay away from them in case they're going to come and take a break in their vehicle. All right,
So I can ask a question and it'll come up on here, or does she hear?
It'll come up either way. This is one of the reasons why I like to have so many different types of spirit boxes. So the other thing that it can come up with is Doug's got audio, and so do I. You can ask a question, and it can come through on either of these as well. So this is why we separate a little bit, because you can ask a question, but Kennedy might hear the answer. I'm going to be bouncing around with all of you, writing stuff down, trying to put all these clues together, so that way when we regroup, I can kind of show you what actually happened between everybody, and then give you all the answers to what wasn't answered. So again, I make it very clear I'm not going to leave anybody hanging. I just don't want you guys to have those subliminal messages before we get started. So I do want to see you word list before we kind of separate. So let me show you how to get to that real quick. When I say the word list, you hit the little white box next to the word. Look at that. You got field. Giant and competitor, like that's almost hand in hand. Competitor by itself, I would be like, it's kind of vague.
Veteran.
But veteran. What time is it now? So that was about 6-7 minutes ago. So we'll kind of see what pops up out of that. So, but right now we have about 2 or 3 very solid terms out of yours. Let's talk about your REM pod. So, any readings here, by the way?
Not really.
Okay.
Nothing over 2.5.
Perfect. So this is going to escalate hopefully very, very quickly. And again, this space is one of the highest spaces that I get. So just kind of, you're going to be in the triple digits, fingers crossed.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and put up your antenna. Now flip the device around so you can see the back of it. Yep, there you go. There's going to be a little flap that you'll lift up, and you'll see 2 little white buttons. It's very loose. So the one closer to the edge is the one you want. Go ahead and click it into place. There you go. When you turn it around, it's going to be very bright. So what you just did was you created a separate type of electromagnetic field around the antenna. So it's not being measured here. So now you know these 2 work independently. If something gets close, watch your eyes. It will make noises. So what I like to do is, because there are different colors in here, is kind of use this as kind of a call and answer. So basically you'll see the blue and the purple in there. I like to say if somebody's here, maybe go to blue, maybe go to purple. You know, that way it's a specific thing, and that means they don't have to touch it, and it also means they don't have to stay too far away.
Okay.
Now, this will go off with your motion as you're walking around. I normally give this device to females because you walk more gracefully. There's a way to reset it if it goes off.
Okay.
On the right-hand side where your thumb is, you'll feel 4 buttons.
Yeah.
The very bottom one is the one you want.
Okay.
So go ahead and click it since it's going off. We now know that reading was coming from your motion of moving the device. You see how sensitive it is? So again, you should constantly be clicking that button whenever it goes off, and then stay still to see if you get the same reading.
Okay.
So if it goes all the way to purple, reset it, and if it goes back to purple, it's obviously not coming from you.
Okay.
You see where I'm going with that? Okay. So, all right.
So you can ask about children.
Name and number only. As long as I can prove it, by all means, the church will have less. As far as the
You'll ask me about her, right?
well, again, it depends on who starts to show up. But we've already got the word veteran on Susan's word list, so I'm waiting for something else to show up with that to see if there's somebody else here with that comment too. So,
Are you supposed to ask questions, or I'm just listening?
Nope. Either way, whatever makes you comfortable. Some people like to just really think hard on it and hope for something to come through. Some people like to verbally go out and just say it. It just depends. But I usually recommend you ask the same question repeatedly, so that way you give them a chance to try to. Kennedy, you getting anything else? No? Okay. Is this what you guys were hoping for?
Yeah, this is very cool. I had a very favorite cat as a child, and she used to sit on the landing. And after she died, we always had cats. We grew up in the country. And when the cats would go up the stairs, they always walked around that spot where she laid. You know, it's like that cat was still there.
She left her ninth life there.
Yeah, it's just.
Question.
Yep. just kind of like spectating.
Just
Fascinating.
yeah.
I heard something.
What'd you
so
get?
I heard screaming, and then I asked why you're screaming, and it said because, and I got nothing.
Again, it's a little vague.
Yeah.
She'll get it. she will hear something specific. I know it. Renovated by a family. Every once in a while something will pop up, but nothing specific enough, and we're going to kind of mention that before we leave. But yeah, that's a really good question. I don't really get that question. Is
This is where their house was?
yeah, it was standing right in front.
Biological, I just read.
Are there any other readings?
No, I've gone up to Blue a couple more times, but
Nice. That's good stuff. All right, let's head back to the place where we started, and let's kind of recap on what's going on.
Okay. That's a stupid question.
No such
I
thing.
heard a noise,
Okay.
and I said twice, repeat that. She made the same noise, but I don't know what she said. She did it twice.
It was the same note.
Same noise. Right in that corner.
So it's obviously a direct response. The exact same
But I
note.
could not make anything out.
All right, so there's a lot going on here. We have a lot of like really great starter clues, and I think you're struggling a little bit to hear things, which is fine because she keeps hearing screaming.
Oh, wow.
Which is weird to hear on radio stations. So not that I'm discrediting it, but I want you to kind of really focus as we move forward after this space. We've gotten plenty of blue readings from that. What does that mean? That means that whatever's going on here is having to go so close to make it go to blue instead of actually touching it. So I asked her to use blue or purple as kind of a trigger color to see if we can get any readings out of it. I normally go after blue based off the indigo. She's had several blue readings here. It keeps going to blue, as you can see. She's gotten all the way up to 57 milligauss, which again surpasses the electronics behind your television. And she's had different ranges of 3.5, all from 14 to 57, she said. So again, there's a lot going on with wherever she was walking. Phrases that were heard that I think might actually mean something. The word one. I'll explain that here in just a moment. It'll make more sense. Who heard 83359?
I did.
Okay, so 833 is one of our area codes in South Carolina, so I don't normally take that. So I'm looking at the 59, and it's 1 year off of Charles's death, which was 58. So it's kind of like a close but no cigar kind of mentality. And the word young was heard as well. Obviously, I told you she was young when she got married. The number 4 was heard specifically out of the SB11. So that's the number of children that Eliza had directly. So at first she heard the number 1, and I said, no, that's not the right answer. There are more than that. And then it came through as 4 a few minutes later. So again, might not always get to the direct answers right away, but they will come through. So let's go through the rest of these answers. So Doug, you can stop your video. So hit the orange square and you can kind of relax. Obviously, nice job. I see you recording. All right. Anybody hear any names along the way?
I heard. I'm not connected up.
Kennedy, anything? For sure, you're gonna be all over that thing. Yeah, that's common. I take those out. You're listening to Charleston radio stations. So, welcome to Lodge Alley. What is this space? So, first and foremost, when we crossed over that last crosswalk coming down this bay, that was where the original Charlestown wall used to be. So, Charleston used to call Charlestown the walled city. You're standing on one of the first streets we ever had. So, this is Lodge Alley. People used to live here. I have the full list of names of every person that's ever lived here. I know this sounds like a very big thing, but it's not. It's not a long list, like maybe a page and a half. I get the same two names here every 6 to 7 years. Here's where it gets weird. I get the names Benjamin and John. You know, it sounds like two very common names, but when I say people lived here, there's only like 2 to 6 people at a time. So when I have 2 out of 5 people that lived here in 1801, every 6 to 7 weeks, like it's being played on a loop, it makes complete sense to me. And again, why would I hear the names Benjamin and John from several different spirit boxes on the same night? So it is what it is, but let me explain to you why that actually happens. So if you watch any of the paranormal TV shows or know anything about the paranormal, you've heard the term limestone in the past. So limestone is said to kind of stir up any kind of paranormal energy. It's supposed to stir paranormal energy up, but you're standing on Belgian blocks. These blocks have been here since 1735. They're made of pure granite, which means they come straight from the earth, just like limestone. They also say that it doesn't just stir things up, it also hangs on to the consciousness of memories. So how many memories are being replayed here over and over and over again? They did do an archaeological dig underneath these bricks, unlike the Pinckney Mansion site. They never did a dig there. That's why it's so anomalous when we have the readings that Tara had earlier. But what they found underneath these bricks were pieces of the clothing and tools and silverware from the people that lived here. They classify these people as lower class, and it makes sense. The other part of the wall would have been on the other side of East Bay Street from where we were walking, and the smell of low tide would have been coming through here quite often. The rich aren't going to put up with that. So if you've been walking around town, you notice some of our houses are skinny in the front and go long back, like on the Battery. So there's a couple reasons for that. So those were obviously the vacation homes of some of the folks like up in Myrtle Beach that I was telling you about. But one of those major reasons was that they would charge taxes based on how much street side they took. So if you're skinny in the front, less taxes. And I showed you the Pinckney Mansion site, it's sat broad, and I bring that up on purpose because they're outside the city walls and they have money. They're politicians. They don't care. It's bragging rights. So that's why their house sat broad against East Bay Street. We have piazzas here too, which means it's basically a porch with a door on it, right? That helps keep the smell of low tide from coming into the home. You open up the second story window and it brings the cool breeze in from the water to air condition the home because cool air falls, heat rises. So again, those are the 2 reasons why those houses are skinny in the front. Again, the people that live down here, like 1 to 2 room houses, not 1 to 2 bedroom, 1 to 2 like little tiny shotgun houses. So again, it makes sense that these people were lower class. It's a very interesting space only because before people lived here, the Freemasons had a Masonic lodge here, hence the name Lodge Alley. So again, we do get terms wrapped around the Freemasons as well. So Freemason, Break, Mason, Illuminati has showed up 4 or 5 times for me last year. Yeah, something like that. But every time I hear it come through in a spirit box, first off, who the heck is talking about the Illuminati on the radio? And why am I hearing it only in the time frame that I'm in here? So again, I don't know what's going on with that whole Illuminati and Freemason thing, but it does show up from time to time. In the event that I'm going through and spot checking Andrea's recording there, and I find one of those Benjamin or John names, I look up every name that shows up in this time frame, and I will give you the link to the forward list of residents so you guys will have it for yourselves. And again, it's an archaeological document based on what they found here, so it's really cool stuff. We are going to go to another alley from here, but here's what's going to happen. I can't take you through it like what we're doing now. I've been booted out. It is residential at the end, and you guys joined the annoying group with all your gizmos and gadgets and blinky lights and all that stuff. So we don't go through the alley anymore. However, I still tell the story because I still get a ton of evidence from it, just from kind of stirring it up and talking about it over and over again. But we're going to be cutting through a neighborhood to get there. So as we walk through this alley, Doug, when we exit, you're going to stop your video and just kind of take a break, and I'll position you once we get to the new alley of where we should probably record. Obviously, everybody else can continue to listen except for Paula. Yours is going to be a noisemaker. So we're going to be in a neighborhood. Your readings are going to be false because we're going to be on some public streets for a while. So you're going to be a little bit out of the game, so you might want to grab another earbud and see if you guys can listen in together and see how that works out. So, and again, those earbuds are yours. If you want to pull them apart to get them stretched, let's do it. Okay, let's head out this way.
Like Christmas.
Any words? Yeah.
This one, American.
American? That's interesting. Talking about Freemasons, right?
I know.
But I can't hear what they're saying here.
Like you're playing on your cell phone. So, let's talk about this alley behind me. Obviously, surprisingly empty. Again, I move around a lot with this story just because there's a lot going on. Again, I'll do my best to slow down for the key words because there's a lot. This is Philadelphia Alley now. It used to be called Duelers Alley because this is where the duels used to occur for the city of Charleston. So, yeah, he's got into it now. He's like, actually, yeah, let's do this. So, and I'm going to explain why I got booted out of this a little bit later, like after we're done, before we move on, because it's all relevant to where we're going. But anyway, we all tell the story of one specific duel because we can actually prove that it occurred. So there's a doctor that moves down here from Rhode Island. His name is Joseph Brown Ladd. He moves down here because his fiancée, Amanda, just inherited a bunch of money, and she has an attorney helping her out with that cash. And the attorney thinks that the doctor's just after her money, so he tells her to get rid of the doctor. He moves to Charleston to prove that he's not. The coachman that brought him into town set him up to be robbed and killed. It wasn't a very good start to his stay in Charleston, but somebody walking by, his name was Ralph Isaacs, and I stop on Ralph because Ralph has the same initials as where the doctor came from. So Ralph Isaacs, Rhode Island. You guys are ghost hunting. Initials mean something, so when RI shows up here, I need that secondary clue so I can know who it goes to. But anyway, he says, man, you don't want to stay here. He's got a friend inside with a gun that's going to kill you and take all your money, but I got some friends at 59 Church Street where you can rent a room from. So him and the doctor become friends because he takes him up on that offer. The doctor's practice starts to take off. He's making his own money now, proving his point that he wasn't after Amanda's money. He becomes known as the Whistling Doctor because he whistled all the time. It's the late 1700s when whistling was a thing. Every haunted city you will ever go to has a Whistler story, by the way. Just warning all of you, ours is a doctor. But anyway, Ralph and the doctor go see plays together. But because the doctor's making so much more money, they can't sit next to each other. So they talk about these plays on the way home. The doctor just got better seats. That's just the way the hierarchy went. But on the way home, they're talking about this new actress that was in town. The doctor thought she was fantastic. Ralph, not so much. Got a little heated when Ralph starts insulting the doctor's fiancée back home in Rhode Island. So they go their separate ways. Now, Ralph is from here. He has friends at the newspaper. He goes to his friends at the paper, puts an ad in the paper telling the whole city of Charleston what he thinks of the doctor.
What he thinks what?
What he thinks of the doctor. So basically a jerk move, calling him out. The doctor sees this ad and rebuttals with, let's go to Duelers Alley. We're going to settle this. So they come down, they take your 20 paces, they turn. The doctor points his gun in the air and he shoots. He did not want to kill his friend. He just wanted to show up for the fight, right? He had the courage and bravery. He was also willing to forgive Ralph. But Ralph has his one shot, and he puts it in the kneecap on the doctor. So the doctor doesn't die either. He drops to the ground. And Ralph made his point that he's also angry. The doctor's friends pick him up. They carry him home to 59 Church Street, where he dies 10 days later after refusing medical treatment. You have to remember, he's a doctor. Probably tried to heal himself by bleeding it out. So, they say as you walk through this alley, you can hear the whistles from the doctor. Keep in mind, if you're going to go down there on your own and use the voice recorders on your phone, every local knows that story. Anybody walking up and down Cumberland or Queen Street on the other side, we all throw a whistle down the alley. I do it every single night on my way back to my garage after we're done at the next corner. So again, I throw a whistle down every single night. So it's not going to be super loud. It's going to be very faint and in the background. They also say you can hear gunshots. I just don't have any proof of that. But when I used to take my groups down there, it would keep your spirit boxes low because we're going to be listening to the regular audio during this time frame and try to keep it as quiet as possible. At the time, I wasn't using the earbuds, so it was a matter of turning your noisemakers down. So, here's why I got booted out of there. It's residential at the end.
Oh, they're going there.
they're going to go halfway because that's as far as they're allowed to go. But you can also see how large these other groups are. It's not fair for my groups of 10 to try to investigate half of a space when there's 2 groups of 20 down there. So again, this is why we stay out here. We got some footage, but here's why I got moved out. At the end of this was November 26th, 2020. I'll never forget this date. It's residential at the end because the alley didn't come all the way through. It was blocked off. So those bricks on the other side are older. There's sun-dried bricks from slave children, which means we have a full handprint and fingerprints in those bricks at the end. I used to take my tours down there to kind of show how far we've come in our history. Well, it being next to a residence, the new neighbor was not very happy. I got a phone call on the 28th because the 27th was Thanksgiving. So I rerouted my tour very quickly because it was Black Friday, and you can imagine I was sold out. So I told my team, we're going to wing it. I'm not a pirate guy, but we're going to go talk about a pirate as much as I know. I'm a vampire guy myself, and we'll see what happens. And they were cool with that. So we get up there, and somebody hears the number 300. Somebody else hears the name Anne. Like, you got to be kidding me. So I don't know what 300 means yet, but Anne is the story I just told, that she's a female pirate where her career started right here in Charleston, which is the same story I'm going to tell you later. But here's where the number 300 comes in. I did my research the next morning as I'm going through the data, and I find out that Anne Bonny's trial for piracy was on November 28th, 1720. We were there on the exact 300-year anniversary of her trial. So it was kind of karma telling me I better learn about pirates, because there's no way that was all coincidental to me. But again, once we get up there, like it's a very interesting story, and I've read more books on pirates. I'm reading another one now. My wife's like, how many books are you going to read on pirates? I'm like, every story changes. Like the pirates, there's too much. You got to try to put all the clues together. So the next space we're going to go to, we're going to see if there's any, if you guys hear anything along the way, because there's like 15 stories. This is where things can take a different turn, and I start telling you guys different stories based on what you're hearing. So it's going to be based on your evidence. I'll ask to see your word list before I really get started at the next stop, but definitely listen in on our way there. You can turn up your spirit box as we're kind of walking down and getting to that next space. You can kill your video for a little while. And earthquake bolts, if you haven't heard what those are, they're basically turnbuckles. So if we have another earthquake like what we did in 1886, which we haven't, you can turn those turnbuckles slowly and it'll straighten the building back up again. It's a great idea, it just doesn't work.
Stop.
The reason why I bring this up is because those are the first set of earthquake bolts that we put in, because this is the oldest government building in South Carolina. So this building was finished in 1713 is when it was finished. Now, I told you all about the Charlestown walls earlier when we were at Lodge Alley. Where that parking garage is now, that's where the walls stood. So it went up past the powder magazine, about half a block, and started going south behind me towards the battery. It's locked into the corners on purpose. If it gets attacked from Revolutionary warships or pirate ships from 3 blocks away, those cannonballs are going to have a hard time getting through the 32-inch thick walls. But let's say that it does. It goes in and it blows up the gunpowder. There's sand underneath the shingles that's supposed to go up with the explosion of the gunpowder and then fall to put out the fire of the gunpowder. It's another smart idea that doesn't work. We had another powder magazine closer to the battery. It did get attacked because it's skinnier down there, much closer to the water. Sand went up and the building ended up burning to the ground, and it no longer exists. So this building took 10 years to build. Does that sound like our government? 10 years, small building? 1703 to 1713. We are here because our story begins in 1708. I come here and I call this a familiar place because we don't have many buildings this old. So it's kind of like using a toy to attract a child first, right? So it's the same kind of principle. It's a familiar. Now this is also a hit or miss location. I'll probably know within the first 5 minutes of us breaking apart, based on what you're telling me, if she's actually here or not. I hate to end a tour like this, but it's one of those instances where, again, if we get something, it's going to be a lot. If we don't, we're not going to get anything. That's just the way this space works. So, 1708, follow me, there's a lot of tourists. Young lady moves here from Ireland. Her name is Anne Cormac. She moves here with her father and his mistress. The mistress is her mother. You guys with me so far? Okay, the 3 of them are running away from his wife. Just want to let you guys piece that together for a moment. How angry was she that they got in a boat and moved here from Ireland? So they land in the Georgetown area. Dad buys a plantation. Mom dies pretty quickly. That means he has to send young Anne down here to Charlestown to sell anything from the plantation, which is why we're here. But at the same token, Anne back home, back in Ireland, was kind of a badass. They say she killed one of her servants when she was only 7 or 9 years old with a knife to the belly. And we did have the word stomach that came up, but that was pretty far down by Philadelphia Alley. So I was kind of waiting for something like, but we've also had like 17, we've got 20, we've got a lot of numbers and things going on. So I'm going to be curious to see what happens here. But anyway, let's fast forward. Building's done in 1713 and 1715, pirates are coming through town. Anne is stoked. I want you to keep her mentality of killing a servant in the back of your brain the whole story, by the way. She falls in love pretty quickly. First guy she falls in love with, James Bonney. Dad doesn't approve because he's a filthy pirate. I wouldn't approve either. So they run away to Jamaica and they get married. Anne Cormac becomes Anne Bonny, your most famous female pirate of the Golden Age. Now, when they get there, James Bonny is not the swashbuckling pirate that she wanted, right? So he's a privateer, which means he's a coward. He's a spy for the British. This is not who she wants. A few years go by and she falls in love again, guy number 2. Guy number 2 is John Rackham, aka Calico Jack. Much cooler name, we're going to call him Jack through the rest of the story. He has his own crew and wants to be part of it. You can't put a girl on a pirate crew. They curse pirate ships. So he makes a deal. If you dress like a guy and hide your gender, you can be a female in my quarters and be part of the crew. She's okay with this because Dad used to dress her as a boy back home in Ireland to hide her away from his wife. So she's like, whatever, I'm a pirate, let's go. So, put 2 and 2 together, adults. Being a female in the quarters, she's eventually going to get pregnant. You cannot have a pregnant pirate dude on the crew. Somebody's going to figure it out. So, he drops her off in Cuba. Go have the baby, come back later, we'll figure it out. She goes and has the baby, returns with no child. We have no idea what happened to this child. I just heard babe.
I heard so.
Yeah.
Now, she's also dressed like a female. This makes Jack pretty mad. Jack just captured another pirate crew, and they're down below deck being held captive, and Anne's going to go flirting, because that's what Anne does. Guy number 3. Guy number 3 turns out to be female, dressed like a guy, to be part of the pirate crew that Calico Jack just captured. So now we have 2 females doing the exact same thing on the same ship. Her name is Mary Reed. She convinces Mary to become part of the ship. They become friends, possibly lovers, nobody knows for sure, and the English find out where they are. So they send their entire fleet to come take down one pirate ship. Anne and Mary are the only 2 not drunk enough to come up and fight with their 1-bullet flintlocks to try to take it down. Well, obviously they're going to get taken and get arrested for piracy. As they're being arrested, Anne looks over at Jack and she says, you should have fought like a man instead of going down like a dog. So the word dog will show up here quite often as well, that I've seen. Now, the judge, his name is Nicholas Laws. He wants to see the 2 men by themselves, right? After he tries and hangs Calico Jack and the drunken idiots that couldn't come up and fight. So the 2 ladies go in front, they reveal their gender, hoping to save themselves. He doesn't care that they're females. He's still going to hang them. We plead our bellies, was the last thing they said, meaning they're both claiming to be pregnant. You can't hang a pregnant woman in 1720. It's illegal. So he sends them both back to jail and delays the hanging till after the pregnancies are over. Dad is still here in Charleston with all of his Irish money. He bails out Anne, brings her back home. She remarries husband number 2, guy number 4, because yes, we're going to count Mary Reed because we don't know for sure. She has 4 children and dies at the age of 84. I know, all of my stories end very abruptly, and I've seen Tara's eyes go, really? That's it? But as far as Mary Reed goes, she did die in the Jamaican jail a year later from whatever pirates die from in a Jamaican jail. Use your imagination. I'm pretty sure it was nasty and gross. So, I left 2 things out here on purpose because you all know how to use your devices at this time. The 2 questions I can prove for certain on this one are the name of Calico Jack's ship. You can ask what that is, and you can ask the names of Anne Bonny's parents. That would be the father and the mistress. Anything else is fair game. Ask whatever you want to. I told you guys at the beginning, people have passed out on my tours. This is one of those instances where what I tell you next is actually relevant to the story. Back in September, October-ish, this past year, I bring my group back here, 7 or 8 people. The kid next to me goes white as a ghost and starts to faint, right? So it's a nice, cool night like this. I pick him up by his armpit and I take him over to the brick wall, set him down. I send his boyfriend across the street with a few dollars to go get him a bottle of water. Comes back, he's feeling better. I then tell the story, so they don't know the story yet. I send everybody out to go play with their devices, and they pull me aside. We have to tell you something. What do you got? We are 2 transgender males, meaning I had 2 females dressed as males, just like Anne and Mary, on my tour. And one of them about passed out as soon as we hit the space. Take that for what it's worth. So, again, I cannot make this stuff up. Again, very interesting. If you do want to get footage of the front of the powder magazine, meaning you have to exit the lot and make a left, I ask that you can do that, but just don't interrupt another tour. Just because, again, it's a little cutthroat out here, as I'm sure you saw, and you guys are on the coolest tour in town. But this way, nobody's like poking the bear like, "What's he got you doing now?" Like, they all do it. But just so you know, that's why I asked where that other tour guide went, because I think she's one of those ladies that says, "Look at the pictures we took. Look at the pictures we took." I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna get a whole slew of evidence tomorrow morning." So, but anyway, let's have some fun in here. I want you to keep in mind that these are apartments back here, so you're at the perfect level. I don't want you to mess with the volume on your end. We are going to end on that wall, so let's see what we get. Tara, you will not get any high EMFs here. If you get anything above 2.5, it's exciting, just because it's not the Pinckney Mansion site. Also, the closer you get to those bushes in the corners of the lot, there's electrical poles over there and parking meters, so you will get something. So don't get excited about false positives.
What can we ask again?
The name of his ship, Calico Jack ship, and the name of Anne's parents, and anything else you want to. All right, let's have some fun.
That's three.
Imagine that.
What is three? We just have three.
They like to repeat things Are you clicking that reset button? So, since the lights are on, it might be a good. I don't think I've ever had this kind of footage. You and I are going to walk over to this wall and try to get to this steeple and see if. I know I told you to keep it out of the sky, but if we can get. Because sometimes there's people that work up there that I hear rumors from things going up in the bell tower. Just trying to think of where a good spot. So, give me a few minutes of footage of that. See if anything moves around.
Yes.
So in between when this was serving all the different wars, the building was used for offices and a mercantile and a textile and all kinds of things, and it was like an extension to the back of the building. And I believe that the powder magazine still has access to this bottom portion and just made the top apartments.
I got the word right and then havoc. That came out clear. Havoc.
Havoc or
Havoc. Havoc.
I heard Jesus Christ.
We're near the church. We get religious terms here all the time.
Really?
Yeah. You said have.
That's what it sounded like. It was havoc from the church. Sounds like
There's not two words like have it.
no, I heard havoc.
Oh, okay.
So is that an old roof line?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the brickwork is very similar going in between the seams.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to tell.
Like the other part was built on after, and
Right.
that was probably the peak.
Right.
Okay, I just asked if you were friendly and yes came out.
You're asking yes or no questions.
Yes came out. Yes came out. I want to know if they're friendly if I'm going to be here.
They wouldn't bring you here if they weren't. Again, this is nothing wrong with it. I'm here for commercial sponsorships. Andrew, you got anything else? Nothing coming through? Alright. Let me get out of your way. You taking pictures. Let's move over to this wall. Kind of wrap this up. I'll collect the devices. Show you guys some answers.
Oh, my brother's name.
I heard Jesus Christ again.
So we get a lot of religious terms, usually starting when we round that corner going to St. Philip's, we get a lot of religious terms because we're going to St. Philip's. Happens all the time. All right, so Paula's finally into it. Look at her, she's focused. All right, so we can cut your video, turn your REM pod off,